Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA Podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to Indo GAA, and delighted to be joined by Eddie Brennan to look back on what was a funny kind of a couple of days, but a mad Saturday night anyway, Nate. But first and foremost, you're in a lot more salubrious surroundings than anywhere in Ireland at the minute by all accounts. You have the sleeveless Under Armour, Dwayne Rock Johnson top on, the whole shebang.
Yeah, over in Italy now for a few days. So yeah, look, it's a nice place to be talking about hurling. There's a pub underneath us here, and they show the matches. We were over here a couple of years ago, and it's gas how all the Irish people with GAA interest just gather into one spot. And I think they had there was Galway were playing Dublin, Wexford were playing Kilkenny, I think, and both of them were on two different screens. So it was epic. And a few fathers telling the sons to wish up and stop making noise and get the matches going. So yeah, nice place to be. So it's like you said here, mad weekend.
Yeah, it's funny though, just as a brief aside, it's probably easier to find somewhere to watch GAA matches abroad than it is in Ireland at times now, even though it's difficult actually. There was rugby on screens in a load of pubs around the city centre even the other night, and it was I know that people found it hard to find places to watch a Munster final, which is mad, but that's maybe a sign of change in times, unfortunately. But just on Saturday night, Eddie, just to capture the chaos and capture the madness, I didn't think quality-wise it was up there with some of the games that have been played, but isn't there something brilliant about that in a way? Do you know, when you see lads making mistakes, and I think it adds to the drama, adds to the pressure, and I loved it the other night now, I have to say.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant to lock yourself into a room and watch that. As you said, it wasn't the most polished, slick hurling, but that created even more drama because, and one case in point, because again, the one thing I think you can't fault, there wasn't one player that played bad the other night. Every single player brought something, made mistakes. But when Dara Donovan ducks inside and checks inside, I said, this is it, it's done. And Jesus, for him to miss hit, and I think Kieran Joyce had a chance coming up the field, and you're like going, there's grass in front of you, go, move on. But I suppose what's at play there now, and this is the human aspect of everything, and no matter how much you train, you're now deep into fatigue, the body is screaming out at you to stop, the head is willing to go, and you're just making milliseconds of decisions, and you're just tired and you don't get that clean contact. But from an entertainment point of view, this was absolutely brilliant. And I know some people might say, and there's pros and cons for everything, a Munster final being served up on a Saturday evening, I thought that added to it as well. I thought it sounded like an incredible atmosphere in Limerick. And I think that's what you get when you do this. And also I think, I think that adds to it. I think that's what created the spectacle even more, because the crowd really got into this match as well. And look, as an occasion, it had everything. It had drama. And I suppose the one thing that I was really pleased with, because, you can talk about the way I thought briefly Tyler Walsh, I thought, was brilliantly consistent in how he let that game go. And I think it added to it. And I think what was really brilliant was that none of the players lost their focus, got carried away, or got drawn into silly stuff. It was really combative stuff, and it was genuine, honest stuff. And nobody, looked for any sympathy. Nobody looked for a break. They just got on with it, and it was just two teams going at it. And look, from an entertainment point of view, you couldn't ask for more. It had drama in the form then of the penalties at the end, which was, again, a tough way to lose a Munster final. But it just, I suppose, it put the icing on the cake for the whole occasion.
Yeah, we'll talk about the penalties in a second, but even the Saturday night thing, I can't imagine the logistical problems it brought in for supporters and players and management, because I even know from my own point of view, I put the little lady down a little bit later during the day, and I says, if this will end at full time, I said we'll go over to the in-laws to watch it, and we'll be able to leave at full time, and she'll still be awake by the time I get home. So extra time, disaster. It was about 20 minutes from full time to the start of extra time, and I'm like, oh no, the eyes are falling out of her head here. We got the first half of extra time, then it says I have to go now. I have to go because I'll be taking the proverbial otherwise, and she'll be up all night. So I listened to the second half in the car driving the 20 minutes. I watched the penalties as I was changing her, but it all kind of worked out. She totally played ball. In fairness to her, she's 2 on Thursday, and she played ball. But it was
can't be a good routine, mixer.
Yeah, a good routine is right. Yeah, but it was the penalties, Eddie. I know you were writing in today's paper about the next score wins or something like that. I actually thought in a way the penalties were like, I didn't get the same excitement out of penalties that I normally would, maybe even in other sports, and I don't know why it was. I thought the penalties was actually an anticlimax at the end of it all. What did you think yourself? Obviously, I'd love replays. We don't have time in the calendar at the minute. Unless we buy some time back, we won't be able to have replays, even though I think it's going to special congress maybe later in this year about provincial final replays being back on the table. But what do you think of penalties as a whole? Just talk to me and talk about possible alternatives, ways of getting games finished on the day.
Yeah, look, I would have, maybe a year or two ago, I was saying like this is probably a good thing in terms of it finishes the match on the day. We're progressing our tournaments, and I get that side of it. But I think on Saturday evening, it probably just took from there was great drama from a neutral perspective, but at the same time there was almost a little empty feeling to a certain degree, if you know what I'm saying. In that, oh God, after such a brilliant game, and they're all square after extra time, right? Jesus, this is tough. And it was about the only time I think I have ever seen, and maybe I just spurred a moment and what was captured on the images. Limerick looked a tiny bit unsettled. Like you could see them kind of, maybe they hadn't planned for this. I'm sure Cork didn't either. And I don't think you can kind of talk about it, but I don't think there would have been any real big practice because they seem to be unsure who was taking them. Whereas if you practice well enough for that, you'll have your boys lined up. And just one little point, am I right in saying that Owen Downey was the 5th Cork man standing with the 5? I thought at one stage I saw, so I was like going, imagine the relief he had when Declan Hannon missed his and Cork won, whereas he'd have been then stepping up to win the Munster final with his penalty. And again, I suppose this is drilling into the whole psyche of that. Can you imagine what's going through them boys' heads? Oh God, I can't. You're more worried about missing as opposed to then stepping up there confidently. Like look at the way Connolly stepped up to his penalty.
Yeah.
You could see him cool as could be, I thought. Maybe inside he's spinning around, but at the same time, the composure he took to finish that. So I do think it was a fraction of an anticlimax. And I suppose you always say, well, you don't want to be just giving out about for the sake of it. You're looking at, okay, better, best. And I think maybe had that match been let go another little bit and say, right, and I know it went on long because the amount of time maybe Gillan took to hit that free and there was treatment and all sorts of things going on. But I do think it's probably better to let a team win it rather than, okay, we drew the match and then we won on penalties. I suppose up to now I wasn't sure. I would have been kind of saying finish it. Now I just think it was a tough way. Whereas at least I think if you lose it on the field of play, with play going on and there's that jeopardy, I think that would create even more drama. Is that everybody knows now we're gone into the red, lads. The next score to go in front is going to be the winning, kind of a golden score. And maybe that would be, because at least then players, and you take out I felt gutted for the likes of Declan Hannon, like what an incredible guy. And he steps up to a penalty like that. Same was it Barry Murphy, Darragh Fitzgibbon after having such a great game, and to get yourself composed for that's not simple. But like I said, that's the game, and it is what it is right now. But I do think I think I'd prefer, if I'm a player, I'd probably rather lose it on the field of play than maybe go to penalties. But there's a great drama in that too.
Yeah, also if it was the next score wins, it would be running the field. There's also the possibility of, a debatable referee call or whatever.
I suppose that comes into play as well, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd agree with you. I'm not a fan of the penalties. I don't know. I think we could come up with something a bit more unique to ourselves and to our own game to finish a game. I'll put it to you that way, rather than something that's taken from another sport. And I don't know. I actually thought it was an anticlimax the other day. I thought normal time and extra time were unreal, and I thought the penalties were actually a bit of a letdown. And it was like, not being smart and not having a go at any players here, but in a way, like, you look at how honed county players are, fitness wise, skill wise, and then all of a sudden, like, it was like a junior B match at the end almost.
Yeah, and it was, and I suppose that's what we love about it, is that there was just, everyone was, when you feel you couldn't stay going, lads were finding, a few bits of energy to stay going. And I think even too, like, to see, the size, for me, the image of the year so far is probably Adam English with a big stupid grin in his face, stretching out Tyler Welch, and he looking at kind of Tommy O'Connell, and the two of them having a little bit of a, nodding as much, say, what do you do here? Like, and I just thought that fed into the whole occasion. And like you said there, like, even just as one guy, like, there was guys who you'd normally put your life on, and they missed scores, very easy scores, I thought. And that just was probably how, it was a physical game. Like, that first half, Jesus, they were hitting hard. And I suppose as a player, you love that, because there's no quarter after given. Like, it was going kind of every way. No, I do think the Limerick fullbacks probably got away with a small bit more. But at the same time, like, you couldn't fault any player for that. I mean, players will play to the rules. They'll play to whatever way the ref is reffing, and more power to it to a certain degree. Like, how would you found that game as an inside forward? I was looking at it as an inside back, and you're like, oh yeah, boy, I can do what I want here today. There was sawing going on, so it was cruel. Like, but at the same time, like, there was you look at even the way Hayes kind of box Mike Casey there once, like, so there was a bit of both going on. So I don't think when you haven't lads, lying down rolling, like, I thought they got on with it, and that's all you can ask for the players, that they played it in a great spirit. And I think you can argue there was definitely a few ones that, geez, I really was surprised that they looked clear and obvious. But at the same time, I think when he was consistent all through, then players know, right, here we go, lads, let's go. And then, the concern was when he went off, I was deeply concerned. I said, this is, and I think they commented, like, this is a complete different referee coming in now. And I think, thankfully, there wasn't any big calls. There was the clock issue, which I had no problem with, because I thought the clock was burned and Cork were entitled to a chance. And I think Brennan Cummins covered it lovely. It was justified. And I think in the spirit of the game, that was a good thing. But and even the two boys, like, I thought it was brilliant. Like, Pat Ryan, and I felt he was right. But to see Kylie, how sharp he was, oh no, you're not getting clean access to that ref, no way, boy. And it was brilliant to see that, because what did it tell you? This means so much to both camps. Like, there was no quarter after given, and then they went away and off they went. And like I said there, look, it was just all in our colleagues' way of describing it. Kitchen sinks were flung around everywhere, and it was as a spectacle, as I said already, just brilliant to watch, really absorbing.
If I was a Cork player and I saw my manager going into the referee at half time and the manager team, I'd be loving that, to be honest with you.
But I think Mixer, that ties into the team, right? And we talked about in the lead into this, right? Where are Cork going to camp up? So they're revisiting the scene of the crime from a couple of weeks ago, where they got, knocked around the Gaelic grounds, poked around the Gaelic grounds. And that can happen. Every team, we've all experienced that, where you pitch up to a match and then you get a chance to avenge that. And you look at how Cork rolled in and then how Galway rolled in. You kind of go, God's worlds apart. And as you said there, when you see, and Pat Ryan, to be fair to him, he's a fairly steady fella. Like, you don't see him getting massively excited. But I think it just tied into maybe the Cork psyche coming in. We're not taking about every inch that we can get. We have to be toe to toe with Limerick.
Did you see Wayne Sherlock? You marked him back in the day. Like, he was like, I am not moving here. Like,
yeah. And he was screaming off Kylie. And that was brilliant because there was nothing mad. There might have been a little shove there of one or two lads, but there was nothing out of control. And in fairness to Tyler Welch too, he just said calm as could be. Right, lads, go to your dressing rooms. Let that be that. Move on. And that was look, it was a good thing. But I suppose going back to what way Cork turned in, I just thought one guy like I would have felt could have been said before that just when the going gets tough, he's a beautiful hurler. I thought Coleman fronted up physically the other night. He put the body on the line, and I suppose we've been saying this over maybe a group of Cork lads for the last 7, 8, 9 years that at times when they needed to put their bodies on the line. And I thought it was probably another little rung in the ladder for this Cork group because, they physically had to go at it because Limerick are just Limerick and you know what you're going to get with them. And I thought when the Bull O'Brien slipped in the goal, I thought, right, this is a big throwdown to Cork here now, see what they're made of against the wind. And to think that them Cork boys held Limerick to 1-9, am I right in saying 1-9 in the second half?
Yeah.
I thought that's a fair achievement in itself. And if you're looking for positive and progressive steps, that's a big step because I really thought Limerick were going to kick for home and would just get the scoreboard taken over. But, and still, I thought Gillan, while he got very little from play, a few little wobbles on frees, he still is lethal. He's just lethal. Like everything he does, there's a purpose to it. He's peeling off. He's bringing a defender with him. Hegarty as well, like had a couple of good points when they really need him. And like I said, the overall for me was everybody played their part. Yeah. And everybody made mistakes, which was brilliant. Like.
Just the Cork bench in particular, like I thought Tommy O'Connell was superb when he came in. Shane Kingston was massive. But one fella I do want to focus on is Conor Lahan. Because and you've been in the dressing room even as a player and obviously as a manager as well. He kept his shoulder to the wheel when a lot of people had written him off, and it can be easy to write yourself off. And he's been in the shadows for the last couple of years. He's got very little game time. He
only came into the 26 for the Limerick match because of injuries.
Yeah,
he only came into the 26, and he played such a central role. You're right, and I think that's something I really, really admire in a guy because he was a guy that I would have felt okay with the attacking options they have now. He's probably gone, and he was always a flat act. Like he had skill level there. Like he carried Middleton to a county championship a few years ago. Was their main man twice maybe in the last 10 or 12 years. And you just say if you're trying to maybe modern game and the running and the fitness levels and all that, but it just speaks volume of the kind of guy that he is. That he stuck it out. And again, sometimes lads can be guilty of maybe getting their own head and write themselves off or get sulky, and he didn't. He waited for his chance, and I think that's a quality that if you're trying to champion something to a group of young guys, there's somebody you'd hold up and say, look, this guy has got very little game time over the last 2 seasons. Look at the contribution he made. And like you said there, coming back to the bench, in a game like that, you need wheels. You need wheels to get around the pitch, and Shane Kingston then was probably, an extra bit of juice around a full Limerick full backline who were after putting in a fair shift. I don't think they replaced any in the full backline. Was it Barry Murphy come on around outside?
He came on an extra time for Mike Casey, yeah. For
Mike Casey. And you have Dan Morrissey and Finn, 2 fit boys, and so this energy. And then equally too, I think they brought under El Capitan came on, and by God did he make a difference. I thought Rob Downey, when it was a physical challenge, when Cork were in danger of being physically overpowered, to be able to bring in him and just block up that middle, I thought, I think we've seen how important he is to Cork.
Yeah, I think he really made his presence felt as well. And it's difficult to come into a game like that, but he was straight in. Just back to Lahan and other lads like that as well. You just have to keep showing up, don't you? You just have to keep showing up. You have to keep putting the work in. It's easy for lads to slip off when it doesn't look like they're going to get game time. And it didn't look like he was going to get game time. He hurt himself. I'm going to say, I think it was the opening night against Limerick in the league, and he's probably been under pressure to get back. He hurt himself the same night that Pádraig Power hurt himself.
He did. Yeah. Remember that.
And he's been struggling to get back. But that's some example to set to lads. I'm talking about club teams all around the country, county teams, you just have to keep doing your work, and you never know. Sometimes you mightn't get a chance to show the work you've put in, but if you keep putting the work in, someone might cry off injured or something like that, and you might go from, like you're even thinking of the Galway sub-keeper the other day that came in. You just have to keep putting in the work, because you never know when the chance is just ready to happen. Things will happen and you could be parachuted in, and if you're not ready, you're not ready.
I remember even Brian Cody used to always say that to us, and it's a very hard sell for guys who are on the fringe, right? It's and you said they're club players. I think when a club team and a group take that type of thing on board, there's no ceiling on what they can achieve, that you're ready to be, no problem at all, and it's not going well for me. And then the faith that Pat Ryan would have known and had in Lahan to turn around and say, yeah, good for a penalty, yeah, no bother, I'll take a penalty, because he has that experience. He probably has a freedom then, because he's having a shot at nothing. He possibly came into this year with the mindset of saying, give it one more and we'll see what happens. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And now he's in a position where, to some degree, and I'm conscious of how I say this, he probably is playing with freedom because he no longer has pressure on himself to a degree. And probably saying, it's not that he doesn't care or anything like that, far from it, but he's probably playing with a bit more freedom, going, I'm a bit more easy with this. Yeah. I'm not as caught with it. And then when the freedom comes, you talk about that that mindfulness is what they sometimes talk about. Be able to see things and be present and be able to just completely engage in what's happening on the pitch without anything else interfering with that, not worrying about outcomes, and he can just enjoy that moment, which is what the ultimate is with sport at elite level, and he was able to do that. And I also think it's worth noting for me, Damien Catalan as well. There's two guys who probably have been on the receiving end of a fair bit of stick over the years.
Oh, Eddie, they're probably two of the most maligned players in the history of Cork hurling.
To think that they came in and ready to go and make a contribution. And like I said, it comes back to what's the takeaway for every club team in Ireland. The boys that come on are massively, massively important. And I remember this, again, going back to my own experiences. Martin Comerford got left off in 2009 for the All-Ireland final. Richie Hogan started. And Martin Comerford came in and made a massive contribution. If he's not in the right frame of mind, he doesn't make that contribution. So I suppose there's the takeaway for anyone. Like, and you say, fair play to those guys. I think you'd have to just say, tip of the hat to both boys to be there, because they could have been very easy forgiven for just saying, you know what, we'll sit here in the back end of the panel and we'll see the year out, and sure, if anything comes, it comes. Now they have a Munster and Leinster league medal in their pockets, which is just, you just say, wow. But it also, last point, the squad. It's all about the team.
Yeah, the second leg of the Rebel treble has already been achieved. They went in, like, it's, when you think about it, Limerick technically didn't lose, but they'd never lost the final. They didn't take away the trophy, so technically it is a loss. It's Kylie's first loss in 17 finals.
Yeah, and I think that's just, sorry, a quick point on that, Mixer. I think I've been, like, even talking about the match in the article yesterday, like, I was probably leaning towards Cork a little bit too much, because I suppose it's what Cork had to do to bring the Munster title home. They had to go into the backyard where had been a graveyard for them previously, and to do that, Limerick were still played really, really well. The only thing that I thought was unusual about Limerick was they seemed to try get goals in the first half.
Yeah. I thought they forced the issue. I thought they forced the issue a bit, Ned. Maybe they were trying to put nails into the coffin early and sow seeds of doubt.
Connor started full forward because he had the legs on Downey. He seemed to be finding pockets of space.
But they weren't really on, though. I thought, like Hegarty's shot, I don't think he normally shoots from there. Adam English, I don't think he normally shoots from. I thought it was a bit strange. I thought they were forcing the issue, whereas I thought they might have only been a point or two down had they just tapped it over, and maybe it would have been a completely different second half.
They could have been very easily leading that first half. They could have very easily been leading. I just thought usually Limerick, they do with cuts. They just keep cutting you. They don't necessarily go for the juggler. They just keep cutting you small. And to me, there was probably 4 or 5 easy points that was there for the taking. And it's unlike them,
Yeah. How do you think they'll bounce back now? And I'm going to feed that into obviously times have changed from maybe from your own playing career, but like the videos that are kind of surfacing now of Cork celebrations, and in all honesty, it's harmless enough stuff. Like it is harmless enough. Yeah. And you can see Pat Ryan in the video, and I think halfway in he's kind of realising, this isn't great. But that sort of stuff, that's only small percents to the opposition. But if that video is at the end of the year, then it's, all bets are off. But when it happens during the year, like, I'll put it to you this way: if Brian Cody saw a video like that after the 2012 Leinster final, would he be do you know what I mean?
Possibly. Yeah, look, I mean, I think people who understand things will know that's a thing of nothing. I think John Kiley and Limerick are much bigger than that. Every year, like they're beyond that. That's. But don't tell me it wouldn't maybe individually narrow at you a little bit, and you put it away. And if that's the only reason you're playing sport, you're in the wrong place.
But if that's the little,
it could be significant when it gets to you get your chance, and that's sport. Look, we've seen it with Cork and Limerick now. The rivalry that's there. Like last year, Cork done them twice. Limerick couldn't wait, and I know what that's like, and that's what happened in the Gaelic rounds 3 weeks ago. And then there's the to and fro. But imagine if these two were to line up again in the All-Ireland final, as what an All-Ireland final you'd have in prospects. But Limerick are Limerick. Like, I mean, I still think at the end of the day, they have, what is it? It looks like the winners of Dublin and Kildare they have?
Yeah.
Dublin and Kildare. Whoever wins that then steps forward to play Limerick. So Limerick, realistically, that's a good opportunity for them. And then, sure, what motivation have they then roll into an All-Ireland semi-final, potentially, all going well, roll into an All-Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny? So, Jesus, you kind of can go, okay, they're disappointed. Their first loss in a final. What way is that going to impact on them? I think it's quite the opposite. I think this could drive them on even more. I think Kiley will give them a nice little break for a few days on the back of that, because that went into the well. They went into the well the other night, and it's one thing that Limerick probably don't need is that. But he'll let them be fresh. He'll have them ready. And I would be still, to me, they're still the team you're going to have. Like, if you're going to have to win in All-Ireland, you're going to have to beat them. I still think, and I know Cork are in a good place. They've gone straight to the All-Ireland semi-final now. They'll be a tough nut to crack, whoever comes through that side. And their confidence is in a good place. But I still, I'll be honest with you, if I'm Kilkenny, who would I rather in an All-Ireland semi-final? I think I'd take Cork.
yeah. Like, from a Limerick point of view, I'm sure they had goals at the start of the year. I doubt it was like, we have to win this or we have to win that. But if there was one trophy that they wanted to win or want to win in 2025, it's Liam McCarthy and nothing else.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters to them. And they're still there. They're still, 2-3 matches, and they're where they want to be. So I don't think they'll be losing their minds or getting too upset. Yeah, they're bitterly disappointed. It's motivation for them. I still think they'll have a huge say in Liam McCarthy this year.
Yeah. Ned, the Leinster final, there's no point in saying any different, it was a pure anticlimax. I was working inside because I was working at the first game, and it was like there wasn't a game going on outside, because you can hear when there's excitement. And then all of a sudden, with about 10 minutes left, there was a load of noise, and I was like, geez, I may get out here and see what was going on. And I probably got the best 5 minutes of the game, and then I was able to head back inside. But it was chalk and cheese, realistically, between Sunday and Saturday night. There's no point in saying any different. Quality-wise, atmosphere-wise, tempo-wise, intensity-wise, excitement-wise.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a number of factors in that. I don't think the Croke Park factor helps. I think that match in Portlaoise or Tullamore would have been brilliant. It would have been a lot more, a better atmosphere. And I think it creates probably a bit of spark as well. And that's not, look, but unfortunately, the big one is whether we like it or not, and we always argue this, but this is unfortunately, Leinster hurling is not creating those exciting games. And for me, for all the world, like, that's not Kilkenny's fault. Kilkenny were still, I thought, what impressed me with Kilkenny was they were like ravenous dogs hunting down. Like, you had, was it the time Cathal Mannion won a free there? Like, John Donnelly is putting in the tackle with Hughie Lawler. Like, so that gives you an indication of the intensity that Kilkenny are operating off of. And I just didn't see a spark from Galway that I expected. I really thought Galway would come here and really just let fly, give it to Kilkenny whatever way they wanted it, and show that, because it's a free hit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's a Leinster final. You've everything to gain by throwing off the shackles. And I struggle to see what the tactical side of it or what the game plan was to come out that way. And I'm sure Micheál Donoghue didn't mean the boys, they looked flat. I'm sure that wasn't the case, and that's what he intended maybe. I don't know. But to me, they never came out and said, right, boys, let's be having you. You know, and that's the way I've faced Galway a few times during the years, like 01, 05, and they came out and then, you know, went at you. 07, we had a great game with them in the quarterfinal.
9 in Tullamore. Yeah.
You know, and you just went, because they just came out and they went at it, and they looked as if they were trying to be somewhat measured the other day. And whatever way they set up, to me, it didn't work. They hit an awful lot of aimless ball in. And that's the one area that Kilkenny will always mop up. Whereas, like, if you want to take on Kilkenny backs, like, you have to take them on one-on-one. You have to go with those individual battles and make sure that you're not allowing them a platform. Because if it was an area that Kilkenny weren't great at a couple of years back, it's an area they've learned to tidy up. And when you have, like, Paddy Deegan and Richie Reid picking up loose ball and getting to plant their feet, okay, over time, they mightn't get it perfect all the time, but over time, they're going to be able to pick it off. And they picked off a couple of lovely long-range scores on Sunday as well.
Just a quick one, Ned. I don't know what the solution is here, right? But is Leinster serving Kilkenny at the minute? Is being in Leinster serving Kilkenny well? And I'm talking about minor, I'm talking about 20s, I'm talking about senior. Because I put it to you this way, right? Kildare won the McDonagh. Unbelievable achievement. I think them coming into Leinster is perfect for them, because they're not going in to say something really cutthroat like Munster. They'll have a hop off Offaly. They'll have a little bit, might have a hop off Dublin and Wexford.
They will not go down next year in Leinster. I'm telling you now, I firmly believe they will hold their own in Leinster next year, because they're a big physical team. They're robust. They have a lot of qualities. Their hurling is really, really good. Add into that, now we have a management team there that know Leinster hurling inside out.
Yeah.
So they're in a good place. But your point being,
and just on that, Ned, as well, like, I'm thinking Leinster is perfect for Offaly at the minute. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's perfect for Offaly, but I don't think it's perfect for Kilkenny at the minute. I don't think they're getting any better being in Leinster, if that makes sense.
And I think even too, you could go a step further, maybe to a certain degree, and say maybe your Wexfords and your Dublins and your Galways will improve with, the rise for one match. You could slip through into the stages there. Not handy enough, but you could slip into the quarterfinals of the championship or the preliminary. You just make sure you don't lose your three. There's the three big teams. You have to win one of them, and you're probably going to get through. So it's probably not bringing more out of your Wexfords or your Dublins. Whereas I think Dublin taking on the likes of a Tip or Waterford, and I think there's a tier. There's the top tier of 3, maybe 4 teams. Then there's the next tier of 3 or 4, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah,
it's kind of. I think there's definitely layers, and what's going to come down the line. Well, I think it's leaning towards a very obvious thing. It's obviously then how you box your provincial championship. Is it a straight knockout over 3 weeks, and then you roll into your competition, maybe 2 groups or something like that? And I don't know what way it is. That's for another day. We won't go down that rabbit hole today. But I don't think it is, because I think Kilkenny. From a Kilkenny perspective, I'm going to be very honest. We needed an absolute savage battle on Sunday to really test us. Maybe go 4 points down, 5 points down. Now can we get our game, get our mojo going here and accelerating like they did in the ends? They got another score, but I just think they might be a fraction undercooked, whereas Limerick are at championship pace. And if we roll into that, which we are as it stands, or whoever comes through there, but if you were to roll into Limerick, are they playing at a higher level than we've played up to now? Arguably, yes.
Yeah. Can I just add, yeah. Just, I'll ask you a simple question, and you've been in management for a good while as well. Have Kilkenny learned anything from the Leinster Championship? Because I'm looking at they've gone back to Richie Reid maybe at 6. Tommy Walsh is back in the corner again. did we learn anything about their midfield pairing, really? Did we learn that's whereas Limerick have learned a hell of a lot. Cork have learned so much. Tip have learned a lot. I don't know if Kilkenny have learned much. I'll put it that way. And that's not good, because if you're learning in All-Ireland semi-final, you're in trouble.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a tough place to learn. And you say, well, arguably last year, if some of those younger guys get 15, 20 minutes of that Clare match, that's where they learn on a tough day. That's where you're going to learn and see what you have. But look, I think Derek will still go after it. He knows what he's about. He'll know that the levels have to go up. He'll know that there was parts of that game were sloppy. He'll know that that effort will not be anywhere near good enough to get them into an All-Ireland final. He'll go after that in training. But what did we learn? I think we learned that Stephen Donnelly is decent. I think I like him. I don't think it's a formality that Owen Cody goes straight back into that team if he's fully fit, in my view. I think the guys that are there are working very, very hard. Would Owen Cody be a great little piece of armoury to have? Pushing lads. We're going to need impact off the bench in an All-Ireland semi-final. And I'm not trying to preempt anything. I'm not trying to make a big controversial statement here. But I just, to me, Owen Cody has had a tough year in that he has had a big injury. He was sick earlier on in the year. His form hasn't been anywhere near it is. So therefore, I think Stephen Donnelly is in a good place. He's fit, he's strong, he's confident at the moment. But imagine if you can have Owen Cody getting close, and you have that impact. You have to look at your bench. So there's that side of it as well. But come back to your point, is it more the same for Kilkenny? Well, look, time is going to tell. How I think it's going to be what's in between here for Kilkenny. I think it's how motivated they are, and they look like to be fair to them. And I know you can say what you like, what's going on in that group. They have their motivations. They've jumped their hurdles. They're where they want to be, and the group, I'd imagine. God, if that Kilkenny bunch aren't hungry, nobody's hungry, and that will all play out in time. But like I said, there we'll learn. We'll see what they've learned from last year's All-Ireland semi-final and what they do. But like you said, there they probably haven't had enough questions asked of them yet. But what do we do in Kilkenny? We'll go find that in training, and it'll be the homework that they do on the opposition team and get that right. If and we don't know what's going to happen with the preliminaries, but if we pitch up to play Limerick in an All-Ireland semi-final, Jesus, if this Kilkenny bunch aren't motivating for that type of match, they're in the wrong place.
Yeah. Just the last one in Kilkenny, and you're obviously a sniper back in the day yourself. It's a Mossy Keown, it's a dream. He just follows in everything. He's such a poacher, getting goals from just being in the vicinity and arriving at the right time. And even the pass to TJ was perfect as well.
Look, to be fair to Mossy, he's from right good stock. His father Liam was a queer detail in his day as a wing back, and Mossy, it's ironic actually. Neighbouring clubs, Mossy and Billy Ryan seem to have a nice little bit of symmetry there. They find each other with,
and it's usually hatred between the two clubs.
Ironically, yeah, and they'll be looking over the fields at each other. It's funny, but no. In fairness to Mossy, he is as honest as the day is long. What you get out of him is raw honesty, and I think he has evolved definitely in the last season or two. I think he's becoming a lot more comfortable playing around that goal, because he will go all day long, and like any good forward, you're saying to him, and too often we see this in matches, sometimes a goalie being able to take down a ball and walk out uncontested. He's that pest of a forward that will stay in around. And it means that a goalie has to be on his guard. It means that a full back is constantly going, chase this lad, I would mind him running out the field a little bit. And when you stay around that goal, sometimes you get the rewards. He's able to come out, he's able to pick off his points. But I think if you look at him there in the last couple of seasons, he's a nice few championship goals gathered for himself now. And he is an important guy for Kilkenny. Like you said, scored 2 the last day, followed up on 2 of them. Brilliant. Be around there, you never know what will happen. And he set up TJ. I thought even he held that past 2 seconds. And that's what opened he made the Galway leg come to him, and then he threw it to TJ, and TJ had that second and a half to have the shot and pick the spot.
Just on Galway, Ned, I was kind of saying it yesterday there, not being able to trust the team or not know what they're going to deliver, to me is one of the worst qualities a team can have. And Micheál Donoghue probably spent maybe the guts of a year the first time around getting rid of that. And I'd say the one thing he did in his first term was they were consistent. You knew what you were going to get nearly every day. Even in 16, they pushed Tipperary right to the pin of their collar in that semi-final. There was very few like aberrations where they were beaten by 10 or beaten by 12 or didn't show up. Even when they didn't show up in the 18 All-Ireland, they nearly won the thing. Do you know what I mean? Not playing well. He got them that really, really consistent. Whereas this year, they've been beaten. What were they beaten? All their games up until the Leinster final that they'd lost, they were by 12 points. They lost the other day by whatever it was. They got nearly double figures. And you're just not sure what you're going to get from them. He says he has full faith in them. But it's hard for an outsider to have full faith in what you're seeing. And just this over-reliability on Cathal Mannion, an inability to win primary ball. It looked like they were going after containment the other day, which was a strange thing, you know. Where do they go from here? I know the obvious thing is they go to an All-Ireland quarter-final, but like... Can they jump a hurdle, which is going to be a difficult hurdle in a quarter final? Can they bounce back from this year, or where do you see them at the minute?
It's really hard to see it, Mick. Because I don't think they have enough. They're not getting enough punch out of forwards. There's not enough quality. I like the work of Fleming. Conor Whelan coming out the field. I think someone saying, "Oh, he got 7 or 8 possession in the first half." Yeah, but he's not punching holes in an opposition. Like, where would you, like, if you turn around and you land Conor Whelan in corner forward or something like that, where Conor Whelan established himself was close to goal. He's lethal in around close to goal. But I think to me, Galway look lost in kind of a system, a process. Like, we have to get ball to hand, we have to have someone loose out, 50-yard stick pass, and then we get a head up and we see if there's a pass on. I just think modern hurling has to be now, you mind possession. You have to be good in possession. You can't afford silly dispossessions. But equally, you can't afford cruel bad distribution. And I thought they had some cruel bad shots out of defence the other day to nothing, to nobody. Whereas, imagine, like, I just thought, having a focal point inside, and see, look, Concannon is grand at times, but he never has been that man that you can say, right, he hasn't been that Joe Canning. And I know I'm measuring him off a big feckin' comparison here, but they haven't that kind of go-to man up front, like outside of Mannion. Mannion is, okay, we play him inside, he's lethal. We play him outside, he's going to pick up ball and strike over some savage points. But you're borrowing Peter to pay Paul, so when you take him, put him inside, and you're losing it outside. So I don't know where they go, but I think, to be fair to Micheál Donoghue, like you said there, year one, when he came in the first time, he got rid of a lot of noisy lads. He got rid of a few lads out of the way, and then zoned in, had his team in mind and went where he went, but he had an awful lot of quality. He had a young Dahi Burke, he had a young David Burke, he had a Joe Canning. Guys that are absolute quality. Proper hurling championship men that are going to bring you to Croke Park. Whereas some of them now have probably seen their best days, and with the best of respect to them, they'll be honest, they'll give you everything. But when you're still probably depending on them to give the big performance, and I don't know, for me again, I'd argue Pádraig Mannion cornerback, I don't know. I know maybe you might say, well, God, if he goes out the field, will he get run all over the place? I think a quality guy like him that reads the game well will find his way around out there. I think back there out of the way, I think surely to God, and I like Darren Morrissey. I think Darren Morrissey can mark a lad and have Mannion a hurler higher up the fields, feeding boys inside. I think just the setup, maybe go back to basics, maybe Dahi back inside or whatever way it is, full, and Fintan Buck look injured, but I'd be worried about him now. It's hard to see where it's going to come out of. You're not seeing consistent performances and one or two guys outside of Cathal Mannion or Whelan. And Whelan, I still think back inside for me.
Yeah. The Joe McDonagh final, the curtain raiser was much better than the main event on Sunday, and it had the fairy tale ending to what's been a fairy tale story all year. And Jesus, Ned, they're gone up to the top tier. They didn't fall through a door. They absolutely broke it down. When you look at, they were beaten down by 7 in the 2A final. They were beaten by Kerry and on the floor after that first round game. They were 0 from 9 in the McDonagh Cup in their history. And then they go and win their next 5 games by an average of 9 points. I would say, ye were one of the most impressive winners of the McDonagh in 19, and I'd say they've been even more impressive. They have power to the top tier, and it's brilliant to see. And something you mentioned there earlier, physique wise, strength wise, pace-wise, power-wise, hurling-wise, and age profile-wise, if they can stay up there for a year or two, they could punch further holes potentially.
Well, what you have right now for the underage development of hurling in Kildare, you have a freebie. You have the best possible, like the whole Newbridge now and welcoming the Dubs down. Jeez, I'll tell you this much. The Dubs will want to have their homework done on these boys because they are not going to be any pushover for them. You'd expect them to get through it. But I'll tell you what, the more you look at it, you say, God, these are going to ask some questions in Dublin too because they have the quality there. And I suppose you have to remember too, like going back a few years ago, when we played the club championship, the intermediate club championship through Leinster, we met Selbridge and we barely got out the door against them in the first round. They were a serious outfit. Now again, you can say the football conditioning across club level means that they're in good nick when they play the hurling, but they have some outstanding hurlers too. Naas in recent years have really, really stepped up. They're pushing forward. They played Ballyhale there a couple of years ago, and by God, they weren't outplaced beside him. They went shoulder to shoulder with him. So, and guys, again, just one, Jack Sheridan, James Burke and different, Jack Sheridan, like the goal, even at the finish for that goal was brilliant. Another lad would have fell down maybe and looked for the free, but the composure. And again, what for me was the difference was they just powered for home. Like Laois refused to go away. They dug in. They fought right to the ends. And then, look, it was just I suppose the belief that maybe this Kildare team have as well. And did a couple of good years under David Harrison, Brian Dowling. You wonder, okay, will it be a year of adjusting up in this? And the big challenge was possibly, can they hold tough? But they didn't. They just went and, as you said there, they just kicked the door down in front of them. And I firmly believe they won't be outplaced. But this will be a massive experience for them. And probably now what needs, you're saying, historically, the Kildare team, you go back to 97, 98 when Miko was above and there was a big profile around that and there was huge support for it. Jesus, the hurlers deserve it now. And you say during the winter now, they'll probably be saying, well, where do we go next? Brian Dowling will be the first to ask that and maybe sit down with the county board and say, wait, what do we need to do to go next? And where do we go from here? Because they have what it takes. But look, I obviously, the connection with Laois should be fierce disappointing for them too because this is their second McDonagh final to lose now in 2 years. And they would have had designs on bouncing back. But they obviously, I think it's just probably an injection of quality is needed there in terms of players. They need to really look at getting, there's a few lads there. Paddy Purcell has been hurling a long time now with Laois. So it's where do they go from here? No doubt Tommy would be fierce disappointed with that. Like he's a very proud Laois man. And he jumped in there, in tough circumstances. And they got them to the final. But no, look, you have to give massive credit to Kildare hurling. I think that to be in Newbridge next Saturday evening, there'll be some atmosphere. Yeah. There'll be some support in there.
Laois left it behind in the first half, Ned, because Kildare actually started really well. Laois had 17 missed chances in the first half, 11 wides, and some of them were bad wides. The shot was never on. 5 shots dropped short and a goal chance missed. And scored 11, so the 11 out of 28 score, the scoring efficiency needs to be around 70%. And I just thought, if Laois were up by 5 or 6 at half time, which they should have been easily, it's a different game. And if Ben Conroy gets that goal at the start and all of a sudden they're 9 or 10 up, it's a completely different game. But Kildare were not allowed to stay in the game, but they actually responded to that goal really well and totally kicked on.
What you had is, look, these Kildare lads have been in Croke Park in a final before the previous year and won us. Do you know what I mean? They know, so that was there in the bag. But at the same time, this is another step up. This is a level above that. So there was bound to be a little kind of a novelty factor, a little 20 minutes of all over the place. And Brian Down probably would have said that to him. Say, lads, just settle down and stay in the game. That's when Laois had their chance probably to put the doubts into their heads very early. It's different if you don't get those chances, but when you get those chances on a day like that. So ultimately what they done was they were able to say, Kildare were able to come back into the dressing room at half time, and Brian Down was probably able to say, look lads, stack the positives here, that's really good lads. By God, we need to mark them tighter, we need to do this and that. Take a sucker punch and still then, kick strong for home. Was impressive. But like I said there, you can't go to the big days and have that kind of efficiency, unfortunately. When and that's probably what will really disappoint Tommy and Niall, is that the chances were there. They had an opportunity, could they have gone in 6 or 7 points up at half time? They could have.
Yeah. Ed, you were in the same position with Laois in 2019 and you pulled off the only win of the preliminary All-Ireland for you could have that to your name forever. But like, how difficult is it to turn around 6 days later? I think you were 7 days, but it's going to be 6 days for both Kildare and Laois. How difficult is that? And even like they have to celebrate Sunday. They probably have to celebrate Monday. You kind of just let it all kind of flow, and it worked out unbelievably well.
Yeah, I suppose it's first and foremost. I've said this. I'm on the record saying I think this is an awful scenario. It's a really tough scenario. Kildare probably won't. They'd be bouncing. Like, that's the positive of winning. But if Westmeath had to suffer this a few times, like if you're turned around and for the Laois lads, and all they want to do, this is their All-Ireland as such. This was their All-Ireland, right? That this is the competition that you get to the final, you win, you're done. And having to turn around and face into Tip next Saturday evening is just a slap of a wet tea towel into the face, really. You know, and okay, I'm not trying to dilute what was a well-intentioned thing, but does it serve any good? Not to Laois where they are right now. That doesn't serve them any good. You're just going to be potentially a bit of a punchbag for Tipperary on Saturday evening, because it's very hard, very difficult for Tommy and the lads to turn around and sell that to the boys. Yeah. Right, lads? You know, okay, you can just you're heading down into the bear pit against, 5 or 6 opposition. If that's what it feels like. You're going in there you're like the fucking poor old devils being fed into the gladiators, like, and just because you're not expected to win that. So it's a very hard thing to do, to ask lads to go in there and face up to that and look for something, say, look, that's how we approach this, maybe for down the line or whatever. So it's difficult, but for especially in a 6-day window. But like the time we were there, we just said to boys, you have to celebrate wins. You have to. Kildare, Jesus, how often in life do you get something like that? So you have to go enjoy it, because you'll regret it if you don't. And then it's just when you decide, right, lads, let's flush the systems, let's straighten up. We're going, I guarantee you Kildare will want to do themselves serious justice on Saturday night against Dublin. And they'll know, I think Brian Down will probably say to them, it's different with the respect to them. Like I said, we're not facing into maybe a Cork team that they had to face into before or something like that. The third team through, and they'd actually say, well, we'll learn something. We have a freebie here. The pressure is on Dublin coming to New Park. We have a freebie here to let fly and maybe make them feel uncomfortable and see where we are and learn something about us. So on the flip side, that then does, it's a no-win situation for Laois. Yeah.
Last one, and I don't like giving out, but Jez, we seem to be given it ammunition to give out the whole time. Can you tell me, and I understand that Cork and Roscommon in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship is on at the same venue as Laois and Tipperary, but like, with the best will in the world, nobody wants to see Laois and Tipperary, okay? With the best will in the world. And then you have a double header in Connacht's in Newbridge on Saturday that I think a lot of people want to see. I think people want to see Dublin and Kildare, and then I think a lot of people want to see Kildare and Offaly in the Tailteann, which is the best Tailteann Cup quarter final. Makes no sense to me. If there were standalone games, you'd say, logistically or financially or whatever, it doesn't make sense. But you have 2 games that they will get good audiences to see, and neither of them are going to be broadcast. To me, it makes absolutely zero sense. And Kildare are the story in hurling at the minute. I think people would watch that if it was broadcast, and broadcast live, and then it's not even on GAA Plus.
No, and that's the really disappointing thing, because you have to, if you're going to turn around and sell it to players, this is the reward. This is a reward for them to be playing Dublin on Saturday evening live on television. I guarantee you, where I am, I was praying to be on television, that you could go and sit down Saturday night and watch what is going to be a very entertaining game. And it's an awful shame. Like, you're saying, okay, and look, you say you hate to be given out, but they're the ones, like, you have to look at the matches and go, well, there's a Kildare and Offaly. Jesus, that's a good rivalry in football, and always has been down through the years. So it would make sense to have matches that are going to be nice and tight and good and competitive and entertaining then as well. Whereas, look, if you're looking at just the one thing you don't want to see, is a team potentially running away with a match or whatever. But yeah, I think they've missed the trick with that. They would be great entertainment on a Saturday evening. And like you said there, you'll get crowds that would go to that. They'll go and watch that. You telling me the Dubs won't load up on trains and go down to Kildare, down to Newcastle? They'd love it. They'd love it. And the Dublin hurling supporters are brilliant in that regard. And there'd be a great atmosphere at that, and a great atmosphere for television. And also, too, if we talk about rewarding teams and giving them a bit of profile, well, let's find out more about these Kildare hurlers. Let's find out a bit more about them and who they are, and see them playing and put them up there on a pedestal, and have young lads wanting to be the next Jack Sheridan or whoever, you know.
Yeah. Ned, thanks very much. Go. I'm sure the sun is really starting to get going there. So go out and enjoy it, all right?
Good luck, Mixer. All the best.